The odds makers, college football fans, and even analysts are starting to doubt the Colorado Buffaloes and their chances down in Orlando.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I am your host, Kevin Borba. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We are also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcast. Joining me today, Scott Procter, the one, the only, the legend. He's here every week. This week, Scott, we actually didn't record earlier this week because I was chasing my dog down a mountain in a cabin. So, yeah, we caught her, have a little battle wounds here and there, but we're fine. Apparently, she's very reactive to deer. So you learn something new about the dog you find on the street every day. Let's talk about these Colorado Buffaloes. They're going into this UCF game maybe as energetic as they have been all season, right? They win an absolute stunner. Not that I didn't think they win. I think we both projected them to beat Baylor, but it was the manner in which they won, right? It was a failed Hail Mary to Will Shepherd. All of a sudden, we have a Hail Mary pass to LeJohntay Wester, who dives across the end zone. And then Travis Hunter lays the wood, absolutely forces a fumble, which I tweeted about it. People were getting on him during the Nebraska game for taking a business decision. And all of a sudden, he's making huge plays, and people were coming after me saying I said that. I was like, I did not say that. I was just saying what was said. I can't control everything, Scott. I just can't. I try my best, but I can't control every narrative out here. But they come to this UCF game, who UCF's coming off a bye week, so maybe that's a factor. It's on the road, another factor. But UCF's 3-0. They beat up on the teams they're supposed to, and they beat TCU by 1 point. And they're 14.5-point favorites. So what do you think about this line right here?
I just don't get it, man. I've yet to wrap my mind around it and really understand the reasoning behind this large spread. It's the biggest spread of any Big 12 game in the conference this week, which I think says a lot. And again, just really doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. UCF is a really good football team. They're probably a top 30, 35 team in the country right now as it stands. But you kind of mentioned it. Their resume isn't sparkling by any means. They beat up a couple of teams that nobody has really heard of the football program it belongs to. And they took a comeback to beat TCU, a team that was projected to finish in the bottom half of the Big 12 this year. UCF was actually trailing that game 21-7 at halftime. So kudos to them for coming out with a big, comeback victory in the Big 12 opener. But none of those three games scream a juggernaut to me, or at least a team that should be favored to beat this Colorado team by 2+ touchdowns. It just doesn't really make sense to me. But obviously, you mentioned it. It's going to be a raucous environment down there in the bounce house in Orlando. Obviously, big new kickoff is going to be there as well. So that atmosphere is going to be absolutely electric. And, granted, the last time we saw, I guess we shouldn't say that. One of the times that we saw Colorado on the road in a raucous environment back in week 2, it obviously didn't go too well for them. They obviously bounced back the following week against their in-state rival Colorado State, also on the road, handled business. But obviously UCF is going to present a different challenge. And I'm assuming, again, if I had to try to make sense of this 14.5 spread, it would probably have to do with the fact that UCF is the number 1 rushing football team in college football, averaging about 375, I believe, yards on the ground per game. And obviously there's a narrative out there that Colorado can't stop the run. But I'm here to say that is an outdated narrative. Last season, Colorado defense was ranked 122nd in run defense grade by Pro Football Focus. 122nd in FBS.
Only 133 teams.
Exactly. This season, through 4 games, Colorado was ranked 15th in run defense grade by Pro Football Focus. So needless to say, it's just a little bit of an improvement, actually a vast improvement. And obviously the biggest reason why, in my opinion, is the additions up front. Some guys like Chidozie Nwankpa, who's been out the last 2 weeks, but is expected to be back in the lineup this weekend for the UCF game. Big Anquin Barnes up front, some of the other additions on the edge, but also really Nikai Hill-Green at that second level of the defense at linebacker. It's crazy because he was actually committed to UCF out of the portal this offseason after transferring from Charlotte. Obviously ended up flipping to Colorado, and he's just been arguably the best defensive player on this team, obviously not named Travis Hunter. And then the back end, Cameron Silman Craig at safety had a 13 tackle game last week versus Baylor. This man is playing with his hair on fire constantly. The same can be said for Nakai. So this defense is much improved, particularly defending the run. So for those reasons, again, I don't really get the 14.5 spread, but it's going to be interesting to see a strength of UCF, go against, what appears to be an improved part of this Colorado football team on Saturday.
Yeah, it's also worth noting too, and I have to own up to this a little bit. I thought the linebackers would be the weak link of this Colorado defense, and Nakai Hill-Green and Levante Bentley are actually, according to PFF, are two of the highest graded rush defense linebackers in the country, which really, really like stark improvement from last year. I would say
Bentley in week 3 for the Colorado State game was PFF's highest graded linebacker period in all of college football. So both of those guys are balling.
Friend of the show, Dalton Wasserman from PFF, I think he said that Bentley's run defense grade jumped like 40 points from last year. Like,
wow, that sounds about right.
That's like, he is way up there. I think it was around there, 40-ish points. And so it's one of those things where I don't think I expected them to be this good against the run, which I think is a testament to the new coach. I think it's a testament to the guys that they brought in. But yeah, I thought that was really interesting. It's also, I'll be interested to see how KJ Jefferson utilizes his legs, right? Because UCF obviously has RJ Harvey, who's probably one of the best running backs in the country, if not a top 10-ish running back.
For sure.
But KJ Jefferson hasn't really had that breakout run game yet. I think his season high is, let me pull it up, it was in the 50s the last time I checked. And so he really hasn't had that game where he's going to torch you for 100 yards rushing, but we know it's possible. We've seen it before. He is I hate to use this comparison, but it's what I've been told so many times. He's a poor man's Cam Newton. His season high rushing yards is 50, which he had against Sam Houston, and then he had 46 against TCU. So he could get it done, right? But I think this is where Colorado's run defense will be tested the most, because the reason North Dakota State had so much success was their quarterbacks were utilizing their legs, right?
Yeah.
We saw it against Baylor a little bit. Sawyer Robinson, not known for being a deer out there. He's not. Yeah, burner. There we go. he ripped off a 45-yard touchdown on a very, very nicely called and drawn up quarterback draw. Like, that was a perfect play call. And so Gus Malzahn knows what he's doing when it comes to rushing his quarterbacks. And so that'll be interesting for me to see how they stack up. But also, you have to look at this UCF defense, and are they going to be able to contain this Colorado passing attack? They ranked 94th in the country in passing yards allowed at 238 per game. And that number would likely be worse had they played one more game, because they've only played 3 games thus far. And it would likely be worse if they hadn't played Sam Houston, New Hampshire to open the season, because Josh Hoover threw for 402 yards and 4 touchdowns.
Boys.
Yeah, 4 touchdowns, 7.7 yards per carry. KJ Jefferson only threw for 230 yards. So it's not often that the losing quarterback throws for pretty much double what the winning quarterback does. So that is a weird sort of thing to look out for. We're going to talk about what Colorado needs to do to win. But yeah, I think the reason UCF is a favorite, I think I'll just summarize it real quick. Home game, they have a very loud stadium. It's a very tough environment to play in. Weather might be an issue. There's kind of like a thunderstorm going on right now, which if there's a thunderstorm, we talked about this, what was the last game against Baylor, right?
Right.
If there's thunderstorms, right, it does make it difficult to throw. Now, obviously, the Hail Mary touchdown came in pretty hard rain, it seemed like.
Yeah, so, I was going to say, I don't know if we can really say that about Shedeur Sanders. That's the truth for 99% of quarterbacks, but I was thinking that about Shedeur Sanders going into last weekend's game, but pretty much that whole second half was significant downpour, significant precipitation, and obviously Shedeur was slinging it the whole second half, including the overtime, and obviously he wasn't fazed too much by it, so I don't know, he might be different in that aspect.
I forgot it was raining until I saw the field view of LeJonte's touchdown, and I was like, oh, that's right, it was raining. So I think that you got to go with home field advantage here. That's one. Clearly, there's a factor on UCF's offense, which I think it's probably KJ Jefferson's legs. That is sort of a significant boost here because their passing defense hasn't done much. They don't get to the quarterback. They have one sack
all year.
Right. They have 1 sack on the year. So there's clearly something on the offense versus offense matchup. Maybe the odds makers think UCF won't let Colorado touch the ball, right? If they get the ball time of possession battle. Like maybe that's the case. That's our best guess, but we'll have to sort of see that as we go. Up next, we're going to determine what Colorado needs to do to win this game. This episode of Locked on Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at ROY, also known as Roy, for those of you who are familiar with the name. It's time to highlight my Roy Player of the Week, or ROY Player of the Week. Roy is a new platform that lets fans make contributions directly to their favorite athletes. Download Roy for iOS or Android and enter a referral code Locked On, and you'll automatically be entered into a sweepstakes to win $5,000 cash. No purchase necessary, void where prohibited. This week, I've selected LeJohntay Wester because he had his nice diving catch to set up that overtime game, or that overtime win, right? We can't highlight Travis Hunter's nice play in overtime without LeJohntay Wester making that diving catch. Will Sheppard had a chance, unfortunately didn't come to fruition. LeJohntay, as time expired, makes a nice diving catch, so he is my selection of the week. If you were impressed as we were by his performance, also, I'm giving LeJohntay Wester $100 on Roy straight to his account because he's my player of the week. So if you were impressed as we were with his performance on Saturday, you could show him some love too. Just hop on Roy and throw in a few bucks. If everyone pitches in just $10, it adds up fast for LeJohntay Wester. Now, you have the chance to show your appreciation for Wester or Travis Hunter or whoever else on their stand-up performance this week, as well as what they continue to do for the program, making sure that everyone's happy, right? So go check out Roy. This episode of Locked on Buffs is also brought to you by the Locked on Podcast Network. It's your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Also, we can't forget our sponsors over at LinkedIn. These days, hiring for your small business is very important. You want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find those right professionals. It isn't just a job board. It helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. And any given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Okay, Scott, it's a real interesting one this Saturday. Big Noon's going to be there. It might be raining. There's this weird odds maker advantage that they see that no one else is able to explain to me. And I'm like,
they know something.
They know something
that we don't know.
right? Maybe there's a crucial injury that no one knows about. Like that's what it comes down to with these kind of things. Like is Colorado missing someone that they're not willing to reveal because the Big 12 does not require injury reports, as we saw with Utah, who is like, yeah, Cam Rising's going to go. And then it was like, oh, by the way, Isaac Wilson's going to start. Like there was people reporting like Cam Rising's taking reps with the ones right before the game, and he did not go. So I think until the Big 12 requires that, maybe that's always a factor. But obviously, Coach Prime is typically pretty open about injuries, so I wouldn't say that's the case here. So give me a key to Colorado beating this UCF team.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be easy to say stop the run, right? That's probably going to be
that's a good one.
Number one. I mean, Coach Prime talked about that yesterday during his presser. I mean, I think he said the plan is to load the box and pray, right? I mean, UCF has RJ Harvey. We know who he is. He was the Big 12 Offensive Player of the Week a couple weeks ago. And they also have another really good running back, Penny Boone, the transfer who came in who could really get the job done. I think he's averaging about 6 yards a carry this season as well. They got another junior running back who's really talented. I believe his name is Miles Montgomery, averaging about 7 yards a carry as well. So they really got a three-headed rushing attack in that backfield, not even including KJ Jefferson and what he's able to do, with his use of the leg. So obviously stopping the run is going to be very important. But also, too, I think it's the turnover margin, right? The turnover battle every week in every football game is super valuable. But I think for this matchup in particular, especially if there's going to be some rain, precipitation involved, I think whoever wins the turnover battle is really going to feel good about their chances to come out with this one. Obviously, last week there were no turnovers technically for either side in the Colorado-Baylor game, but you can look at the last play of the game as somewhat of a turnover. Travis Hunter forcing that fumble, that ball going out of the end zone for a touchback to end that game. I mean, that's a game-changing play right there. So this defense, in particular, this Colorado defense, after forcing 4 turnovers against CSU in week 3, they have to find a way to come up with at least one turnover, force UCF into either an interception, a fumble, something like that. That's how you get some momentum, when you're on the road in a raucous environment, you turn your opponent over. And obviously on the other side of the ball, Shedeur and that Colorado offense has to take care of the football. Shedeur is, throughout his college football career, has been great at that, right? So that's not exactly a worry. But, you know, he was pressured a little bit more last week than he was the previous week. I think he was sacked about
8 times.
Season high 8 times, right? So, and he honestly avoided about 6 more just by being a ridiculous athlete and just slithering out of some sticky situations to extend plays and whatnot. But again, taking care of the football, forcing UCF into some turnovers, winning the turnover margin, and obviously doing what you can to stop the run. I think that's going to be the biggest keys to victory for Colorado on Saturday.
Yeah, I'm going to add on to that, stopping the run one, and just you got to put the ball into KJ Jefferson's hands, and you have to make him throw it, right? You look at their win against TCU. He was 13-22 for 230 yards, completed 59% of his passes. He did have 3 touchdowns, but obviously not the most impressive numbers. And then you just look at his stats last year. Only once did he throw for 250 yards and win a game, and it came against Florida in overtime. The other times he threw for 250 yards, there was a loss. And then he threw for 246 against who is this? West Carolina. I'm not even familiar with who that is. I'm sorry to them. I'm not familiar with your game. But realistically, you need this to be a KJ Jefferson, or you need this to turn into, hey, this is a Shedeur versus KJ Jefferson duel. And I don't think KJ Jefferson could keep up with Shedeur. Now, you cannot allow KJ Jefferson to be in open space. He's 6'3". He's listed at 247, and if you would have told me he weighs 255 to 260, I would not doubt you. He's a big dude, and he's fast, he's strong, and so Colorado needs to, which hasn't been an issue this much this year as it was last year, but open field tackles need to be on point, right? You cannot let him get to that second level. You cannot let him break tackles. So really just contain KJ Jefferson, force him to throw the ball, and then 2, protect Shedeur, right? I mean, 8 sacks that's insane. Like that is, I think that's the most he's been sacked at Colorado, if I'm not mistaken. I think he was sacked 7 times, 3 times last year. So let me confirm that real quick, because I mean, if Shedeur Sanders is getting hit, he was sacked 7 times last year, 3 times. So that is a new career high for Shedeur Sanders, which is not a career high that you want to be a part of.
Not ideal.
And
again, there was at least 4 or 5 that should have been sacks that, again, Shedeur just slithered his way out of it.
Right. Obviously, and even that last play, I thought he was going to get sacked. He has great pocket awareness. So for him to be sacked 8 times, not great. You have to really dominate the trenches, right? UCF has 1 sack on the year, so there really should be no reason for them to all of a sudden turn into the fearsome foursome of the iconic NFL defense. There's no reason for that. And you should also look to establish a run some more, right? Like, I think you're finding a little bit of something. It's obviously not the most prolific run game, but you're finding something with Michael Welch. They turned to him both times they were in the red zone to power it in. So clearly Colorado likes what they see there. I liked what they did with Shedeur running the ball. You don't have to force him to scramble a lot, but there were a few RPO plays where it was like, oh, he is a threat to run the ball, because Shedeur is an athletic dude. I think it was the USC game last year that he got clocked at 20 miles per hour, right?
Yeah, it was.
So like, he's a quick guy. He just isn't he's not a burner as well. I mean, he's decently fast. Arch Manning fat. No, I'm just kidding. Arch Manning got clocked faster than Tyreek Hill, and everyone's like, it's a Manning with legs. It's like, everyone relax, okay? But Shedeur, get him.
That impressed me. That impressed me about Shedeur on Saturday. I think, I caught some flack for it, but I felt that was Shedeur's best game as a Colorado Buffalo, right? And maybe we can talk about it a little bit. It's an unpopular opinion for whatever reason. I mean, we're just talking about the criteria, right, for his best game as a Buffalo. It has to be a win, right? So we're talking about the 3 wins that he's had last year, or the 4 wins that they had last year. I would take out both of the Colorado State wins because of opponent. Hey, obviously played really good in both of those games, but the opponent, I mean, you can maybe say the TCU game last year to open the season, but I just disregard the idea that his best game was his first game. You know what I'm saying? I feel like he's gotten better since then. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's obviously not the Nebraska game. You could say North Dakota State week 1. But I think, again, based on what he did on Saturday, throwing for 300+ yards, if you take out his sack yards, he ran for 68 yards on Saturday night, so that's 400 plus.
I hate sack yards.
I mean, it's really ridiculous. It's really ridiculous. But again, if you take out those sack yards, he had 400 plus total yards of offense between passing and rushing. Obviously made play after play to, close that game. And again, when he's in that mode, man, Colorado is going to be tough to beat, especially with how well this defense has been playing lately. And again, they continued this trend of being locked now in the second half of games. Right. I mean, again, on Saturday against Baylor, they just allowed 7 points after halftime. That's the most points they've given up in the second half all season, which is just crazy. So if that second half defense can continue to play like they've been playing, if Shedeur can continue to play and continue to kind of utilize his legs a little bit more, like we saw on Saturday night, I think this team is really rolling in the right direction. You mentioned the run game as well. You mentioned Michael Welch, who obviously had 2 big touchdowns last week. Deion Hayden, the Ohio State transfer, Coach Prime said is going to play. He's going to be back this weekend on Saturday versus UCF after missing the last 2 weeks with a high ankle sprain. And obviously, Deion Hayden was the Buffs' leading rusher after the first 2 weeks, before he suffered that ankle injury. So that's going to be a huge kind of plus to get him back in that backfield alongside Michael Welch and Isaiah Augusta, who's kind of looked good in spurts too as well.
Yeah, I think they have an interesting little 3-head monster in the running back room. It's just how are they going to use them?
Can I get your take on that though? What do you think Shedeur's best game?
I hadn't thought about it, but I think you're right. Because other than that, I would have gone with TCU. But I think, and this is a very unpopular opinion, I think had TCU ran the ball, they would have won that game. Like, I'm being completely honest. They just decided to keep trying Travis Hunter, and it did not work. But yeah, I think this game was the most complete game from Shedeur in the terms of what he did with with his arm, and then his legs as well. It kind of he's much more athletic than people give him credit for. I've seen Eli Manning comparisons out there, which I feel like are very disrespectful athletic wise, but he ran for a rushing touchdown, which we don't often see. But when you have to sort of worry about him running, right, as a defense, that changes how you do everything, right? I think the previous 3 games, it wouldn't have shocked me if you told me that Shedeur took off like 3 times because it felt like he was never running the ball. Whereas this game, it felt like he was looking to run when necessary. I don't want him to just run for no reason, but when necessary.
His long scramble where he kind of started to the right side of the field and broke a couple of tackles and had to, come all the way to the left side of the field. I think it was about a 12-yard gain. That scramble was one of the most impressive plays in the entire game to me. And he came in a big spot as well.
Yeah, I think, and also not to blame Shedeur, but I think part of why the offense starts so slow this year, or part of the reason is they're so reliant on him like finding a receiver right away, where it's like he's looking and looking and sometimes it's not there. And so it hasn't led to anything yet, but he's forcing passes, right? And that's my other key to the game. But to answer your question, I think this is his best, most complete game, right? Because you have TCU would be a close second. They beat Arizona State. I remember that game being an ugly one.
Exactly. So that he didn't play too great throughout it. Obviously, he had the great finish there. Yeah. But
right. And so Nebraska, I think that Nebraska team was just bad. And honestly, it wasn't that impressive. And then, Colorado State. They just, I don't know. It didn't wow me as much as I think it will wow most people. I think Colorado State is the team that he should have success against. So this Baylor team, solid defense, stout defense, and he played really well. Both passing and rushing the ball. And so this is our final key to the game, which is, can we start fast for one time? Can we do it? Because people are looking at the scoreboard and being like, they scored a touchdown in the first quarter. It's they did, right? But it came with a minute 56 left in the first quarter. And they're still continuing to waste drives. They're still continuing to sort of stall out early in the game. And it will come back to bite them. If, say, UCF scores a touchdown on their first possession, and Colorado goes 3 and out. UCF gets the ball back. They score again. UCF's not going to throw the ball the rest of the game. They're just going to run the ball. Colorado will not touch the ball. I don't care how good Shedeur is. I don't care how good Travis is. If you don't have the ball in their hands, there is nothing they can do. So that is our final key to victory. When we come back, we're going to be talking about what we think will happen in what could be the game of the weekend. This episode of Locked on Buffs is also brought to you by our sponsors over at FanDuel. If you want to get in on the action, FanDuel is the place to do it. And now you could start with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you have a hunch in the middle of the game, You can check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com to get in on the action. It's prediction time. And honestly, this is my least confident prediction of them all. I've predicted Colorado to win each game thus far. So I'm currently like them, 3-1 on the year. So I thought they would have beat Nebraska. I was not expecting Nebraska to be that good. Also wasn't expecting Nebraska to lose to Illinois. So I was like, what is this?
College football for you.
College football. That's true. That's the best explanation ever. No need to expound further. Let me give you the scenario for this, right? Because this is what ESPN's telling me right now. And this is recorded on a Wednesday. UCF has an 82.2% chance of winning according to the matchup predictor. They're favored by 14.5. The over-under is set at where did it go? 64.5. So this is expected to be a fairly high-scoring game. Weather confusing to me. It says 87 degrees but cloudy. But there's currently a storm going on, so we'll see if that changes. I imagine it will because I've probably been 0 for 4 on weather reports this season. So I think this is going to upset a lot of people. I think UCF wins a close one here. I do think that KJ Jefferson's legs are the difference because I hate to compare him to Colorado to TCU, right? But TCU has a very potent passing attack. They're very dynamic, and they end up losing that game. Colorado has a very dynamic passing attack, and they were unable to beat UCF. I think UCF's run game is going to be a key factor, and I think that they're going to be tested on defense, right? This is the most dynamic rushing quarterback that they faced, and so that's where I give the edge. I imagine this will be a similar score to TCU. I think I'm calling for a 35-31 game here in favor of UCF.
It's not bad. It's not bad, Kevin. I mean, I have to agree with you. I think it's going to be a close game. I also think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I don't think UCF's defense is very good, evidenced by the fact that Josh Hoover, TCU offense, absolutely torched them, particularly through the air, which gives me reason to think that Shedeur Sanders should have another excellent outing. That Travis Hunter, LeJontay Wester, and even Will Shepherd, who has kind of yet to break out, I think is in for a big game. And obviously, we know that UCF's running game is elite, absolutely elite, literally the best in college football at this point in time. Right. I think Colorado's run defense is much improved, and I think this is the exact kind of game as 14.5-point underdogs that will make people around the country say, oh, so this Colorado team is different, huh? Yeah. So for those reasons, again, I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I think Colorado pulls off the upset on the road in a one-score game, whether it be by 3 or 7 points. If you have to give me to a prediction right now, I'd say like a 41-35 final. Colorado wins with the Shedeur Sanders Brady mode game-winning drive at the end of the football game. So that's how I see it playing out. It wouldn't surprise me at all if UCF kind of came out ready, using their running game, again, coming off a bye, which, again, is part of the reason why I think Colorado was in a little bit better shape. Obviously, we talked about the fact that they've had slow starts in pretty much every game this year. I think UCF kind of coming out of a bye will kind of lead them to kind of be a little bit slow out of the gate, not having played a game in 2 weeks. So I think both teams may be getting off to a slow start, or maybe Colorado, with so much emphasis on a faster start, can kind of help them get out the gate a little bit quicker. And I think that'll help them kind of, at game's end, come out on top with a huge road upset victory as an underdog.
Yeah, I think a win here would be tremendous for this team, right? Because two things I want to preface, right? Before everyone attacks me in the comments, I promise you I'm not projecting Colorado to go 12-0. My record prediction for them was 7-5. So there will be times where I predict they will lose. It's just part of football. I don't know if any team in college football will go 12-0 this year. So relax. Secondly, this is, I talked about it, a statement game to the max, right? You're on the road again, which is that's a big win of itself. You have 15-point underdogs, basically. 3, you're in Orlando, which is, Scott, remind me what state that's in?
Florida.
That's in the state of Florida, the Sunshine State. So Coach Prime loves him some dudes from the Sunshine State to come play for his team. And if they win, right, I'm sure there's a handful of visitors at this UCF game that wanted to watch Colorado. Like, I think that's the case, right?
I saw yesterday that they announced that they have run out of recruit passes for that game. UCF has.
Yeah, and I promise you,
It's
50%
not
of
for
those kids are
them.
not going to UCF. I promise you that.
Yeah.
So you win this game, you do it in front of the Florida recruits. It kind of helps that you have a Florida game every couple of years. So it would be a statement win. I just don't know if Colorado can slow down KJ Jefferson, and I will gladly eat my words if they lose the game. Right? Yeah. Pause. Take it easy, Scott. Take it easy there. Take it easy with those eyebrows. I appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. I appreciate Scott for joining us. Scott, tell the people where they can find you.
As always, y'all can follow me at Scott Procter _ on Twitter, now known as X, my last name. Actually, you see it right down here below.
Yes, you
Kevin already got you covered, as always, as well. Go check out my work at thecoloradoan.com. Had a feature yesterday up on Travis Hunter and why he should be the Heisman Trophy winner, although I don't think the voters are going to allow him to have such an honor. And I got a story coming out later today on Cameron Silman-Craig, who I mentioned earlier, the Colorado safety, who is the heart and soul, the unsung hero, to use Coach Prime's words, of that CU Buffs defense. So check that out. Appreciate you, as always, having me on, Kevin.
Of course. We love having Scott on. Also, go read that Travis Hunter piece. It's really interesting. I did a whole Heisman breakdown a while ago. The Heisman Trophy, it's a quarterback award. And when it's not a quarterback, history shows, at least since 2013, you have to play a wide receiver or running back at Alabama. Those are the only people who have won the Heisman. So Travis is definitely worthy. True two-way player.
Definitely.
Fun fact before we go, he leads the country in snaps, and he leads by 169. The second place person, the second place person has 169 snaps less, and he's also played one more game than Travis Hunter. So Travis Hunter's a freak athlete. He's doing crazy things that we may never see again. So go check out Scott's piece. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow us over here on Locked On Buffs, and I will see you guys tomorrow.